hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, we're talking about XTool's portable laser enclosure. Well, I've had my XTool D1 Pro 20 watt laser for a while now, and I've been playing around with it with different projects. And with a CO2 laser, which the D1 Pro is not, with a CO2 laser they are usually contained. They're self-contained with a means of ventilation for the smoke, the fumes, the dust, etc. But with a diode laser, in most cases, I say most cases, they are an open frame laser engraver, which means that the smoke and everything else just fills into the room. And if you're doing it in a small shop like mine, or even in the house, it can really cause an issue with smoke. So I was looking into different enclosures, but I wanted something that was portable, something I could break down and put off to the side because space is at a premium. And the more I looked at them, a lot of them were very flimsy. They were almost like a tent that went over top. And I eventually settled on XTool's model, and it's a little more robust than what most of them are. So that's what we're going to look at today. I'm going to put this thing together and we're going to do some testing and see how it works. So let's head over to the bench and we can start the assembly of this thing. Well, as with anything I've seen from XTool, their packaging is just incredible. They really put a lot of thought of how to package this stuff in here. But I can tell you right now that the first thing we want to do is find the right side panel. And you'll know which one the right side panel is because in the top corner, it will have roughly a 3-inch hole in it. As well as the right side panel, you will also need the exhaust fan motor, you will need your flange for your exhaust hose, and the supplied hardware, 4 bolts, 4 nuts, etc. Not supplied, which you may or may not find helpful, a 7mm wrench to hold onto the nuts while you're tightening them. And what this is all for is to attach our exhaust fan to this port on the side of our right panel. So on the fan, you will see up in this area right here, 2 arrows, one indicating airflow and one indicating the rotation of your fan. So you want to place your fan with the airflow arrow pointing out and line it up with the pre-drilled holes that are here on the right side panel. You'll then place your flange over top, and then from there we can just place our bolts down through, making sure to catch both your enclosure wall and your flange and your motor, and then we'll place a nut on the opposite side and tighten them up. And that is truly all of the assembly that you need to do, and it just takes a couple of minutes. Now, I may or may not, I'm going to keep an eye on these nuts over time and see what the vibration does, if they'll loosen off. I may put some Loctite or some thread locker on these bolts just to keep it in place. The rest of the assembly of this thing is Velcro panels. So let me get my laser and we will assemble this thing right around our laser, and then we can put it to a couple tests. Well, the setup of this enclosure is crazy simple. So we'll just take our right side panel, place it here on the right side of our laser, and we can see that we have openings here for our USB, for our power, and for our on-off switch. We have 2 other ones depending on if you're using risers, and they are just closed off or opened by a Velcro pad or a Velcro patch in the back. From there, you just want to get your left side panel, and you'll know it's the left side panel because it will have a vent along the bottom for fresh air to come into the enclosure. It also has this Velcro strap that you can use to attach tools that you use normally with your laser to the side. But we will just sit this on the one side, just like this. Your front panel is the one with the large indentation in the top half of it, and that will just sit here on the front and attach using their wide Velcro strips, and we will attach that on both sides. The back panel will install the exact same way using the Velcro strips. We'll just sit that there like this, and on this side like this. You now want the lid or the top, and the top will have your viewing window in it. So what we're going to do is we will take our enclosure top, sit it along the edge here. It attaches at the back end here with a little bit of Velcro, as well as at the very back. So it's easier to apply the back first, then these sides. And at this point, there is a couple snap enclosures here. And the snap enclosures will just get connected right here on the inside of each sidewall, and that will allow you to have your lid held open. That's it. That's it, guys. That is your enclosure. On the front, it has magnets to hold the front end closed. Well, look at that. Okay, it would appear these magnets are reverse polarity here, and they are actually repelling the lid. I will be contacting XTool about that, and hopefully by the time this show airs, I'll let you know what they did about that and whether they got back to me. So that's supposed to click close there. Oh well, you know what? Manufacturing mistakes happen. We'll contact their customer care and see how good their customer service is. It's a good test for customer service, right? Okay, so from here we can remove the protective plastic and put the power to our laser. Now some of you may be wondering, what about your air assist? How do you get that to connect? Well, there is a little port right here with a little grommet, and you can easily place your air assist hose inside, connect it to your laser, and it's very easily contained. And actually, I kind of like the way it keeps it up above your work, so you don't have that hose coiling up in there and kind of messing up, as it sometimes does. All right, so the next thing we want to do is we want to connect our actual venting hose. And this does come with the length of the hose. It's all compressed here in this container. So let's open it up and see how much they provide. So it also comes with a couple of spring clamps to hold your hose in place. So I'll just slide that on there. And this hose stretches out. It looks like, let me just see here. Yeah, it looks to be about 6 feet of hose. I'd like that maybe a little longer, but I mean, for now, it'll get me going, right? I can always add to it later. And this is a 3-inch hose, I believe. Let me just check on that. Yes, it's 3-inch diameter venting hose. So I'm going to get this attached to the side and get it clipped in place, and then we can take this for a bit of a test run. Well, I have no way to test the CFM of this. I don't know. But there is quite a bit of air coming out of there for the little fan. I'm going to get this up in the window of the shop, and I think what I'm going to do is with and without the smoke removal, and just see what happens. We'll film inside the actual enclosure, and I don't know, let's see what kind of results we get. I'm going to purposely burn some stuff up, boys. So for the first test, I basically had all of the smoke extraction shut off. I ran this pass with a cut in mind to cut a ring out of this 1/4-inch thick plywood, and we can definitely see that the chamber or the enclosure for the laser is filling up pretty quickly with smoke, and a lot of it. Now normally all of this smoke, of course, would be all around the room and would dissipate throughout the room, and it really does create a problem. But in this case, with no dust or smoke extraction, we can really see the effects of how it fills up that enclosure very quickly. Now for the second part of the test, I actually slowed the laser down. I did this to create a little more smoke than normally would be produced, like was produced in the first test. So I slowed it down to produce more smoke. This video here is actually being shown at twice its speed. And we can see very easily the movement of the smoke as it goes to that back corner and is drawn out by that exhaust fan. Now the smoke is drawn out rather quickly during the cutting, and it's actually incredible considering how low the power is in this fan. It's incredible to see how it draws it out. And honestly, about the only thing I had left to do after the cutting was done was I waited for about 20 to 30 seconds before I opened the enclosure, just to give that fan the extra time that it needed in order to completely clear out the enclosure and clear out the chamber. And if we look in the little inset screen there, we can see with the camera set outside exactly how much smoke is being drawn out and blown into the backyard out through the shop's window. Well, what is the point of having a laser engraver if you can't laser engrave some of your own parts or laser cut? So I actually cut a bunch of these rings. This is what I was cutting during my test series. To test the smoke extraction. And I took 7 of these rings, it's out of 1/4-inch ply, and I glued them together. Now, it's no coincidence that the outer diameter of these rings is the same as the inner diameter of our extraction hose. And then I have cut a piece of 3/8 thick plywood that fits into my window opening. Now, the thought process here, once this glue dries, is that my hose will slip over top of this, creating my own flange, and then our spring clamp will hold it in place here on the board. And that way I can have the window open in cooler weather without allowing the cold air to come into the shop. Just this one little hole will be blasting out the smoke through this one little port. So I'm going to test this once the glue dries, and we'll see how it works. I'm also thinking that on the one side, I'm going to add a little bit of weather stripping just to give a better seal to the window. And I'll just move this lid so that you can see that setup. I haven't placed the weather stripping on it yet, but I definitely will. There's just the tiniest little gap on the left-hand side. It's nothing that a lot of wind is coming through by any means, but a little bit of weather stripping wouldn't hurt. Well, it's the end of the day and you need to pack up your laser and you don't want to keep this enclosure out. How fast is it to break it down? Well, pull the 2 cords to get the side section free. The top section, undo your snaps just like that, and there's 2 Velcro, or the 3 Velcro tabs at the back. That folds up and it's out of the way. Your air assist can be removed out through your side port. Remove your hose just like that, and then pull off your front panel. There's one panel done, and the rest of them you can just undo this side, fold this up, done, unplug your fan, and done. And then this can be put away off to the side. Now, as it turns out, I will probably, I don't know, I'm going to test it, but I will probably keep mine on here as a dust cover to keep all the dust out of the fan of the laser unit itself. But time will tell. We'll see how it works out. And there you have it. XTool's portable laser enclosure. Guys, I haven't had really much of a chance to run through it other than playing with it during today's show in the initial tests. And I have to say that on initial tests, I like what I saw. I like the fact that the smoke was vented out and blew it out of the shop. I also like the fact that after I made that piece of plywood with my homemade little flange for the hose, I like the fact that it exited out of the shop perfectly. Nothing in the shop, no fumes, no smoke. It vented it all. I will say, however, a couple things. When you're Velcroing one of these together, my advice to you is to make sure that you test that the panels are flush with each other. That way the lid sits down tight onto the body of the enclosure. If you don't, the smoke will leak out. It has that capability. Of course, it just comes out the cracks. You have two things that are misaligned. The lid is now sitting off kilter and leaving a gap. So make sure that those panels are equal or even when you Velcro them together. I like the fact that this thing has the fire retardant interior. Now, it will melt if it gets exposed to excessive heat. It will melt. It just will not ignite, which to me is another great safety feature. Now, I've seen all kinds of guys online take blow torches to their enclosures and try to melt it and try to light it on fire. Well, you know what? Those guys got those enclosures for free. They got those as a paid promotion by XTool. I did not. I paid for mine, so I won't be taking any blowtorch to it. That's not happening. But I will be sure to get back to you guys about those reverse polarity magnetic closures. It does cause the lid to hold open, and because of that I spun a couple bungee cords around it to hold it closed during testing, and that worked just fine, but it is not acceptable for a final solution. Hopefully by the time this airs I will have answers from XTool and this will be rectified, and I'll be able to report back before posting this show. So what are some of the things that I would like to see changed? What are some of the things that maybe I don't like? Well, one of them is I'd like to see those straps that hold the lid in place. I'd like to see those a little longer so that you get more of an angle leaning back on that lid. The way it works out now is you have to flip the flap over the back end in order to counterbalance it so it stays open. If you put the flap to the front closest to where you're working, it will close down on you again because the straps are not quite long enough. They could be about another inch longer. But hey, that's just my personal preference. The other thing that I thought was kind of weird is I wish that they would have provided a hose flange. What is the point to provide you with two hose clamps but only give you one flange to connect it? So a second flange would have gone a long way, of course, to getting that piece of plywood in the window and having an actual flange on there to connect to instead of using my laser engraver to cut discs that I glued together. Now, it worked for me, it worked out, but it would have been nice for the manufacturer to provide that extra little piece of plastic so that you could connect your hose. They gave you the means to secure it, just nothing to secure it to. So that was a little bit of an odd thing. One of the things I like about this, of course, other than the excellent smoke removal, etc., it reduces the noise of the laser. When this thing is closed up, although you do hear the hum of the exhaust fan and you still do hear that little buzz of the air assist pump, it's not that big of a deal. You do not really hear the laser. It's in that enclosure, and the material of the enclosure is dense enough and thick enough, and it's a sealed enough unit that it really reduces the noise of the laser. And while the laser is not a really loud tool to begin with, it's just that much more quiet inside the enclosure. I also like the fact that they have that viewing window on the top, and it gives me the opportunity to be able to look down inside and see how my project is progressing. What I would like is some lights in there, so I may think about it. I may wire in a couple LED strips in around the top of the lid to illuminate the interior should I want to, really look in there and see what's going on. But I do like that window. It gives you the opportunity to view the progress. Another thing I really like about this particular enclosure is that air assist port that allows your air assist hose to go in, connect to your laser. It keeps it way above your work, and it also keeps it out of the way. That air assist hose can be a little unruly, and when that laser is zipping back and forth, it can drag the hose into the working area and cause a couple problems by shifting your work, by getting hooked on the edges. But with that air assist port in the enclosure, it keeps it up and over above your work and really keeps it out of the way. I was really pleased to see that, so much so that I may check and see what the maximum amount of hose that I need and then cut mine short to tailor to that so that it can go into the enclosure and I don't have to worry about it hooking on my work or having all that excess hose. Hopefully that amount of hose that I need will be the halfway point of the length that I was provided with in the first place, and then I'll have two hoses should one for some reason get punctured, damaged, or what have you. Either way, guys, all in all, this thing is a little on the pricey side for what you get, but for the what it provides you with the venting and that sort of thing, I don't know. For me, anyway, for me personally, I think it's really worth it. It gives me the option to use the laser constantly here in the shop without filling the room with smoke, and or using it in my house. I've cut another second piece of plywood to fit over one of the house windows, so I can crack that window, and I've made another little second flange. I can hook the hose up to that in the house and laser engrave in the house on the days that I can't make it out to the shop, because of course I only come out here on the weekends. So I could do laser engraving in the house during the week and come out to the shop on the weekends and who knows, maybe do more laser engraving. Either way, guys, this is a great option for anyone who's looking for an enclosure that's a little beefier than some of the portable ones that are out there. And on top of that, it makes a great little dust cover for your unit. Guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning in this week. I know that we've been doing quite a few laser shows, but there are people out there that are interested in this, and this is kind of what I'm playing with at the moment. So I'm taking you guys along with me for the ride, and hopefully you're learning something as I am learning something. I'm having a lot of fun with it, and it's always fun to learn new stuff in the shop. If you haven't already, please consider liking and subscribing. You click that bell and then you're not going to miss the notifications of future episodes of the show. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed today's content. I hope you found this a little bit interesting. And if you're considering an enclosure, maybe this will push you over the edge to consider this one. Guys, I want to thank you again for tuning in, and I hope you're going to join me again next week when I bring you yet another Alternative Tuesdays. I just want to jump on here quickly, guys, and let you know that I did contact XTool's customer service to let them know about those reverse polarity magnets, and there wasn't any hesitation whatsoever. They sent me a whole new unit out. Now, it did take about 2 weeks to get the unit, and getting some response from their customer service was not instant, of course, because they're in a completely different time zone, but they took care of everything and sent me the new unit. There was even a couple of COD charges through customs that I ended up having to pay when I received it, but XTool reimbursed me for those as well. So guys, all's good. If you do get one of these enclosures and you have an issue with it, give them a call. They'll make it right.